Elevated blood sugars that are difficult to bring down can be a sign of infection in people living with diabetes, but any infection, bacterial or viral, can equally cause this to happen. And yes, COVID-19 would be on that list, but so would any other type of infection. In that situation, the most important thing to remember is sick day management. And sick day management for anybody living with diabetes, but particularly those living with type 1 diabetes, it is critical that your blood sugars be checked more often to ensure that your insulin is being taken on time. And in fact, you may actually need to take more bolus insulin compared to usual, despite the fact that you may not be eating and drinking like you normally do. And as well, in type 1 diabetes, ketone testing may be necessary when you find that your blood sugars are elevated and difficult to bring down. Of note, if you also happen to be taking an SGLT2 inhibitor with type 1 diabetes off-label, then the elevated blood sugar may not be the clue that something is wrong, and you may actually need to listen to your body and how you're feeling and do ketone testing if necessary.
Well, as one of my colleagues would say, the answer is that it always depends. Healthy eating is important for everybody, and particularly important for people with diabetes, as it's a core element of how people with diabetes can help look after themselves and look after their health. But healthy diet and healthy eating is different from dieting. Maintaining healthy eating patterns as part of a healthy lifestyle is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so establishing healthy eating patterns which are sustainable for long-term health is very important, rather than going from one fad diet to the next. It's also important to recognize that one size doesn't fit all. Everyone is unique in terms of their metabolism, their social environment, their life circumstances, their tastes in food, as well as their financial resources. And making choices around food is easy to make recommendations that are hard to implement for people, particularly if they are living with modest financial income. Low carb diets, or restricting the amount of carbohydrates that people eating, can be very helpful for some people. Some people have found that by controlling or restricting the amount of carbohydrate they have at any one meal or over the course of a day can be very helpful for them to help manage their blood glucose levels and keep their glucose levels stable, and also for managing their body weight. Other people have found low carb diets very difficult to stick to and hard to sustain, but that's true for many patterns of eating. I think an important consideration is to think about what you would be replacing in your diet if you were to restrict or reduce the amount of carbohydrate that you're eating. If people who cut back on the amount of carbohydrates they eat replace it with healthy foodstuffs, and that means vegetables, plant-based proteins, food which has not been refined, whole grains, nuts, healthy fats, these are likely good and healthy choices. However, replacing carbohydrate with highly processed proteins and fats, or high-fat, high-protein meals like sausages, deli meat and things like that, that may not be the healthiest choice, even though both approaches would be lower in carbohydrate. It can be hard to get enough fiber in your diet if you have a very restrictive low-carb diet, and that could be important for gut health. And there are some other considerations as well. In particular, one thing that's important to think about is whether your current diabetes treatment might need to be adjusted. People who are taking insulin or using sulfonylurea drugs, things like glyburide or gliclazide or diamicron, they may need to have those doses reduced to avoid hypoglycemia. For some people that will be a good choice, but obviously that may be challenging if you have type 1 diabetes, where stopping insulin is just not an option whatsoever. Another thing which I would want to emphasize is that if you are taking a drug called a sodium glucose transporter inhibitor, things like Jardiance or Forxiga or Invokana, it's very important that your doctor knows that you are choosing to move to a low carbohydrate diet, as there are some unique and specific safety concerns there. Similarly, if your doctor wants to start one for you, it's important that you tell them that you're following a low carb or restricted carbohydrate diet. Diets, like many aspects of diabetes, are confusing. There's lots of information out there. It's hard to know what is true and reliable. The position statement from Diabetes Canada is to try to help provide some guidance for healthcare professionals as well as for people living with diabetes around how to approach this safely. So if you have questions, don't feel shy to ask. You can get advice from your healthcare provider, from your family doctor, and Diabetes Canada's website, we hope, is a useful resource to you. So I hope this has given some perspective on this. It's a choice. It may be suitable for some people. It may not be suitable for all. But the most important thing is to think about healthy choices that are sustainable, that will help keep you healthy and happy and enjoying life in the long term, rather than having a very short-term goal that may not be sustainable. I hope this has helped.